Alright, let's set this here. Good afternoon, good evening, YouTube world, everybody out there. Looking like we're at episode 13 for the Tree Peakers podcast. I got a little bit of time here. Busy life, you know, so when I can find time to do this, I'm always happy to do it. I'll tell you what though, when I'm at work and I'm doing what I do, I got so many people that come in and filter in and out of my job that here in the Southwest, here in New Mexico, and I get a ton of great stories about this stuff. So many people won't come on camera and do the podcast, and I ask a lot of people. I've got some numbers and I've got some things where, you know, both schedules need to line up this summer to be able to make it work. So today I'm going to read a little bit more from the book. I'll probably do one or two more podcasts from this specific tribal Bigfoot, David Paulides, from some of these old school stories or whatever, but just to get some cool shit in from the past. But man, a couple things. So what was it, last weekend I had a gentleman who was telling me about a buddy of his who drives 18-wheelers, big trucks for a living, and was driving home in between the state line of Colorado and New Mexico, where we're at. We're about 45 minutes from southwestern Colorado, and said that about 2-3 in the morning he was coming back from Ignacio, and as soon as he got closer to the state line of in between Durango and Farmington, here in Colorado, New Mexico state line, between 2 and 3 a.m., something massive on 2 feet runs across the road, right? Anybody that's familiar with 550 or this area, you know, people that watch from this area who will know what I'm talking about. This thing is on 2 feet. It's massive. It's covered in hair. It gets across the road in a split second. Right? But as the guy sees it and turns and looks, he watches it, boom, just go through this big fence that they have up to block the deer from coming onto the road, you know? And let me just check something real quick. Okay, good. Make sure we're rolling here. And he couldn't believe what he saw, right? And so he goes home, he drives home, and the next morning he goes back to check to see just what the hell happened. And he said that fence was demolished. I mean, just completely demolished, you know? So, like this gentleman told me, he goes, this was a Navajo gentleman who shared this story with me, and his buddy is an avid hunter, hunt bear, hunts elk, hunts, you know, all the big game. He said he knows what a bear is, and that definitely wasn't a bear. He said a bear's not going to be running across the road on 2 feet. And the second thing, when he got there the next morning to check out that fence, I mean, he said there was just a massive area of destruction that just obliterated that fence. So I thought that was really cool. Another story, I got the guy's number. He works out at a casino out on the Navajo reservation. Got a lot of stories coming out of this area, anywhere headed out towards the Shiprock area or past into the Chusca Mountains and all that. I had tons and tons of great stories. But a lot of activity at this casino in the middle of the night. You know, a lot of weird stuff happens. And if you're familiar with me and my story about what happened in the Bisti Badlands, this casino and the mesa behind it, the bluffs, about 60 miles, you know, up on top of those bluffs is where I had my encounter. It all connects there, so it all makes sense to me. You ain't got to sell me on it much more because I'm all in. So let's see, I have a couple things bookmarked here, but first I've got a lot of stuff crossed out of what I've already read, but there's one that I want to get to here. Let's see. Okay, this is one that I've been wanting to read here. Let's see here. Okay, so first I'm going to read a story from David Thompson, and then we're going to get to Theodore Roosevelt, okay? So enough with the small talk introduction. Tree Peakers Podcast, episode 13. I'm dedicating this to my buddy Jeremy because he likes the podcast, but he hates when I read from the book. But listen, I'm filling time until I can get a few interviews in, which I will this summer. Like I said, going to be going on location for a couple things. I got 2 different people that want to take me out onto the Navajo reservation and show me some on the location, on the spot where it really goes down, and I'm really excited about that. Don't exactly know how I'm gonna film and put together all the editing, but you know what, there ain't nothing to do but jump in and figure it out. So Jeremy, this is for you, buddy. Even though you hate hearing me read from a book, today's episode is dedicated to Jeremy, my buddy from work, good buddy of mine. Okay, so let's check this out. David Thompson. Thompson was a known explorer, surveyor, and trader for the Northwest Trading Company and spent a majority of his time in the western United States and Canada. When he did cross mountains or large barriers, he would employ locals to assist him. Many times he employed the services of local Native Americans or Canadians who knew the land and the obstacles. In total, Thompson mapped 3.9 million square miles and wrote 77 complete journals of his trips. T.C. Eliot wrote the Journal of David Thompson, putting Thompson's journal notes into a flowing story. The Oregon Historical Society printed the Eliot works in March 1914. Thompson had a few notes in his journal that are of interest to any Bigfoot researcher. In January 1811, he wrote, "I saw the track of a large animal. Has 4 large toes, 3 or 4 inches long, and a small nail at the end of each. The ball of his foot sank about 3 inches deep than his toes. The hinder part of the foot did not mark well. The hole is about 14 inches long and 8 inches wide, and very much resembles a large bear track. It was in the rivulet in about 6 inches of snow." 40 years after making this notation in his journal, Thompson explained a little more about the finding when he wrote, "Continuing on a journey in the afternoon of January 7th, 1811, 1811, goodness gracious, how long ago is that? It's incredible, right? And you're finding strange tracks in the wilderness. I mean, come on, man. You know, it just ain't nobody out there trying to fake a what they didn't even have a term for Bigfoot at the time. Like, we know this after reading from these chapters together, that it was the wild man, the hairy man, gorilla man, it became in the 1900s. So, you know, 1811, you know, just incredible. "We came upon the track of a large animal, the snow about 6 inches deep on the ice. I measured it, 4 large toes, each 4 inches in length. At the end of a short claw, the ball of the foot sunk 3 inches lower than the toes. The hinder part of the foot did not mark well. The length 14 inches by 8 inches in breadth, walking from north to south, and having passed about 6 hours. We were in no humor to follow him. The men and Indians would have him be a young mammoth, and I held it to be a track of a large, odd grizzly bear. Yet the shortness of the nails, the ball of the foot, and its great size was not that of a bear. Otherwise, that of a large, old bear, his claws worn away, the Indians would not allow to follow." Yeah, because they knew exactly what it was. I'm telling you right now, the North American, Native Americans from North America all the way into the Canadian territory, they knew. They used to share this land with them before the Spaniards and the Anglo-Saxons got here from Europe. They knew all too well. Thompson's remarks about the dimension of the footprint parallel Bigfoot tracks seen throughout North America. The 14 by 8 inch size is a fairly normal adult size print. The claw notation at the end of each toe could be an overgrown toenail. The length of the toes is not entirely usual, as Bigfoot tracks are noted for having a readily identifiable toe. Bigfoot in North America are normally accepted as 5-toe prints, but I have personally talked to witnesses and have photos of 4-toe prints that look very similar to 5-toe. Later in Thompson's 1851 narrative, he states, "The sight of the track of that large beast staggered me, and I often thought about it, but could never bring myself to believe that such an animal existed." Could never believe it because it wasn't like readily available when this gentleman was out surveying all of this country that he mapped, right? But in these odd encounters that he did come across something like this, it's hard to believe, but it's there, right? Something made that track. I mean, come on, you know. It just didn't appear out of thin air. But they sure do, the further you dive into this subject, they sure sometimes disappear into thin air. And there's a book that I want to get by Ron Moorhead called Quantum Bigfoot, which is all talking about, so I don't know why they call it the woo-woo factor, just the multi-dimensional factor and the portal theory of how these beings can hop in and out of dimensions, stuff like that. We got to get into that shit too, because that's some strange, weird stuff where you'll be following the prints and whatnot, and all of a sudden they just disappear, as if into thin air, you know, like they were just taken out of it, or they just hop in and out of this reality, which I know sounds crazy, but if you're into this subject, you've most certainly come across it. If you are more than a few weeks in, or a couple months, if you've been diving down the rabbit hole on this thing and you're a couple years solid, you know, or 5, 6, 7 years like I am now, then you most certainly know about the strange portal, multi-dimensional, interdimensional travel of these strange beings, right? Don't even know where to go with that, but I'm sure if you're into the subject, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. So let's read the story of Theodore Roosevelt, former President Theodore Roosevelt, okay, of the United States of America. As we get into it, you will see that this is long before he became president. He was an avid big game hunter, and this story appeared in his memoirs, The Wilderness Hunter, a super odd occurrence that happened out of a probably between, I don't even know, 30, 40, 50 year hunting career of his, hunting big game. Okay, so here we go. Theodore Roosevelt. Most people interested in Bigfoot are also intrigued with the outdoors. If you have any fascination for what wildlife may offer to our souls, then you probably know something about Theodore Roosevelt. If you don't know much about this past U.S. president, you are about to learn about an interesting person and a Bigfoot relationship. Theodore was born October 27, 1858 in New York City. To keep dates in perspective, the Civil War began 1812-1861. He loved the outdoors, and maybe his life in New York energized his need to get away from the big city. From 1877 to August of 1886, from 1877 to August of 1886, Roosevelt took trips and had adventures that were almost unheard of for a 19th century gentleman. In addition to graduating from Harvard University, he took a 30-mile trek through the snow and ice in Maine, climbed the Matterhorn, killed 2 deer with 1 shot, killed a grizzly, hosted a hunt along Long Island, and had his personal boat stolen, tracked the thieves down, and personally turned them over to law enforcement. Roosevelt was a rare man and someone who could have been the Indiana Jones of his time. He loved the outdoors and would ask friends and acquaintances to join him on his trips. While his killing of animals is not politically correct for the 21st century, it does describe a man that wasn't afraid of much. He loved the exploration of new areas and the challenges that they offered. Just for the record, Roosevelt was sworn in as the 26th president on September 14th, 1901. Even after winning the presidency, he still traveled to Africa and hunted rhino and Cape buffalo and fished for piranha in South America. He died at age 60 on January 6, 1919. In 1893, Theodore Roosevelt wrote about many of his exploits in the book entitled The Wilderness Hunter, a non-fiction work published prior to his run for president. One story in particular caught the attention of Bigfoot researchers many years ago. The story had to do with rugged trappers working together in the mountains that divided the forks of the Salmon and the headwaters of the Wisden River. The 2 trappers were having a great year of trapping and decided to work a new area that had stories associated with it of being very wild and dangerous. Roosevelt was told of the story of the trappers by one of the men, Bowman. He was young at the time of the events, but was up in his years when he told the story. The region where the trappers were headed had a bad reputation because the year before a lone hunter went to the area and was reportedly killed and mutilated by a wild beast. He was found by 2 prospectors weeks later, his body in pieces, torn apart and scattered in a small area. Bowman and his friend weren't too concerned about the dead hunter and went directly to the area. The area they were entering was gloomy with a very thick forest and little sunshine. They got to their camp with a few hours of daylight left and went to canvass the area after putting down their packs. They returned to find something had gone through their packs, thrown items around the area, and even destroyed some of their equipment. They felt at the time that it was probably a hungry bear and didn't think much about it. Bowman was making dinner while his companion started to look closely at the footprints of what had entered their camp. After examining many of the tracks made in the dust, the companion told Bowman that the creature had entered their camp, was walking on 2 feet, an astounding claim. Bowman then looked to the tracks and said that they even looked like a human footprint. It was getting too dark to examine tracks, so the trappers went to bed. After a few hours, Bowman was awakened from a deep sleep by something he didn't know what. As he opened his eyes, his nose caught the odor of a foul-smelling creature in the area. Okay, there it is again. There's that foul smell, right? How many times have we heard this, guys? His eyes started to clear from being asleep when he saw a huge figure standing near his blanket. He grabbed his rifle and fired at the figure. He immediately heard a creature running away into the darkness at a furious pace, breaking tree limbs as it departed. The remainder of the night was uneventful. The remainder of the night was uneventful. The next day, the trappers stayed together and set their traps and worked the area. After a long day working, they returned to the camp to find it was torn apart again. This time the creature walked through a soft, marshy area where the prints were extremely clear. It was obvious that the creature was walking on 2 feet, and its footprints was similar to a human's, but slightly different and a lot bigger. After the trappers had turned to their sleeping blankets for the night, they heard a large creature walking on the opposite side of the creek. It wasn't far away, but it was just far enough that they couldn't see it. The creature was breaking branches and making noise that let them know it was definitely nearby. They didn't get a lot of sleep that night. They awoke the next morning and decided to gather their traps and leave the valley. They had agreed that while the trapping and wildlife in the valley were plentiful, the disturbances at night were getting to them. Bowman volunteered to go out and quickly gather 3 beaver traps, while his partner stayed at the camp to pack their packs together, along with their pelts. He found the traps full and took the time with each beaver to prepare the pelts and clean the furs. It was a long day before Bowman returned to the area of his camp. As he made his approach through the forest, it was abnormally quiet. No sounds. There was no wind, no sounds made by his walking, nothing as he approached the perimeter of the camp. He started to yell for his partner, but there was no response. Remember, this is from Theodore Roosevelt's The Wilderness Hunter Memoirs, 1800s. Okay? Bowman entered the camp and initially didn't see anything. He still called out for his friend, but there was no sound. At this point, he started to walk to the area, and was then that he saw his partner dead. Just like the guy from the previous years, right? Who had been torn apart and torn to pieces. Now let's listen to this shit. With a broken neck and 4 fang marks in his neck, the tracks of the creature that had harassed them were surrounding the body. It was obvious that the body had been moved around as though the creature had examined it. The creature had not eaten the body, and the only signs of the attack were the fang marks and the broken neck. Bowman was now an emotional wreck. He and his partner had high-powered rifles, and yet his partner did not have time to fire his gun. Bowman was upset. He left everything but his rifle and fled the area. He ran all the way to where the Pawnees were hobbled. He had reached the point of safety and then headed into a local town. I will end my version of this story at this point. Now, I've even seen accounts of this story when it's been done where, you know, when this thing was bothering them at night, they were firing their rifles at it, you know, and that foul smell, they could smell it, they could hear it, like it said, breaking through the branches, you know, the way David Paulides puts it in here in his book, Tribal Bigfoot, is pretty close and accurate to everything that I've heard about it, but it also, like I said, in a few different little short stories that I've seen of it and video wise, you know, they were firing at it, you know, shooting into the darkness and stuff. They were terrified at night, you know. So just crazy, dude. Just super crazy. I mean, for that story to be in his hunting memoirs, I remember the thing that is left out here in one of the stories that I seen about it was the reason this story got told to him by this old trapper, this old hunting guide, Bauman, was they were sitting around a campfire in the Montana wilderness on one of these big game hunts that Theodore Roosevelt was being taken out on, and Bauman was one of the hunting guides that was taking him. They were sitting around the campfire at nighttime before going to sleep, and they heard a blood-curdling scream, right, that made the entire forest go silent, right? And that's when Theodore Roosevelt asked the hunters he was with and the guides, what the hell was that? And Bauman goes on to say, that's a scream I hope I had never heard again in my life, because it was something that, you know, was attached to this story from 20 years prior, you know. I'll just finish off what it says here. It says, the story is fascinating for several reasons. It is believed that it had occurred in the 1860s, approximately 100 years before Bigfoot obtained international fame at Bluff Creek. The stalking of the men by standing on the opposite side of the creek is reminiscent of stalkings by Bigfoot. The odor Bauman described is also indicative of a Bigfoot presence. We all know that, right? The trait of going into the camp when people are gone for the day is also something Bigfoot has been known to do. The trappers identifying the creature as walking on 2 feet and having a track different than a bear's closer to the humans is something that is really unusual and strikes to the heart of the Bigfoot identification. Anyone who has studied Bigfoot knows that the behavior of the creature in this incident parallels Bigfoot on many grounds. But everyone has to remember that there are no recorded validated killings of humans by a Bigfoot. I have personally read many third-person accounts of purported attacks by Bigfoot, but none have ever been validated. But we all know that, right? So that is the story of former President Theodore Roosevelt prior to being elected president when he was younger, being an avid wilderness hunter, which is why he called that the title of his hunting memoirs. And I always found that pretty fascinating. Now, I have another couple things in here bookmarked that I thought would be good to read. And here's a few things too, like the artist's illustrations of what people have seen. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, right, this sketch artist, forensic sketch artist, who helps law enforcement when they're looking for somebody, David Paulides hired him to do sketches of people's encounters. And 9 times out of 10, if you ask me, these things look more human than they do monkey or ape. I mean, look at this. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't know if there's a glare from the sun, but these things, these beings, have a human quality to them. 1000%. You know? I mean, look at this. Here's a sighting where they saw two together, you know? But these guys, yes, I mean, they have this, you know, brute animal-like quality, but they also have human features too. That's why I say more than like gorilla man, ape man, whatever. It's more like, the only thing I can like say is like Neanderthal or early hominid or something, you know, ancient hominid. Like human beings, you know, 1 million years before we showed up. Like these things were around and we're some kind of offshoot from them. I don't even freaking know, dude. It's like, it's so crazy. Like, what the hell are these things? Where do they come from? You know, I mean, look at, you know, somebody sees something like this walking through the forest when they're out, you know, on a hike, or this is one of the better ones here, that where it shows the face, right? Like what it actually looked like to the person who's seen it, but then the forensic sketch artist did it to where he left the hair off the face and it's reminiscent of a man, you know? just crazy. Now let me find a couple more little things here. There was these little ones I thought I had marked, but I must have moved it. Where's it at? What is this one? There's a super old school story here of something that had been scanned, but it's looks like a little too hard to read. So, the Hermit of something. What is it? The Hermit of Siskiyou? That looks like a good story, but it's the ink is so old, it looks really hard to read. Let's see here. What do we got? What do we got? Where the hell are those little ones that I was scoping out here? It's getting really fucking hot where I'm sitting. The sun is like right above me. I'm gonna turn the air up real quick, try to cool down here. It's been pouring rain here in New Mexico the last few days. Okay, cool. Here we go. I did have it bookmarked. There's my little stupid thing. It was stuck in the middle. Let's see here. All right, here's a bunch of little, what look like, yeah, here's a few cool little things we're gonna read real quick, okay? One more time, I'm gonna just check something on the recorder here. All right, yeah, we're making good time here. We're good. Let me just set this back here real quick. Okay, my friends, I think we're good for a few more little things here. Here we go. Check this out. Yukon Territory, Victor Mountain, 1901. And the source of this material comes from the Western Canadian Sasquatch Research Organization, the WCSRO. A bushman, it's another word, old school word for Bigfoot, right? A man of the bush, right? A man of the wilderness, right? So a bushman is seen crossing a clearing. The witness stated that the creature was very tall and had fur black as night. Note, the bushman was an old northern Canadian word for Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Next little excerpt here. The Nanitee Canyon, 1930s and 40s. Source, again, the WSCRO. A Mr. Taylor, 85 years old, told a radio show that while he was working, he had seen large beings full of hair. Many times he was trapping in the 1930s and 1940s. Again, just so long ago, you know, and even that is close to 100 years ago, and it's just incredible that they were seeing this shit back then, you know? I mean, it makes perfect sense to me that they would be out even more back then, as opposed to now where, you know, cities blanket the North American continent, you know, with the rise of cities across North America. But back then, I mean, it was still so much pristine wilderness. You know, it makes perfect sense that they had much more land, you know, to live on. Yeah, it's just incredible. So real quick, I'll start it over. It's not a long paragraph here. As Mr. Taylor, 85 years old, told a radio show that while he was working, he had seen large beings full of hair many times when he was trapping in the 1930s and 40s. Many times when he was trapping in the 1930s and 40s, not just once. In a river canyon in the Yukon called the Nanitee. The Nanitee, something like that. This place had been called Dead Man's Canyon. Taylor states that these were large beings and very friendly. However, when he tried to get close to them, they just casually walked away. Let's keep going. Faro Winter, 1970. Here's one a little close to home for all of us, right? Who have grown up in the 20th and 21st century. Okay. Faro Winter, 1970. Witness Terry Gaines observed a brown-haired Sasquatch lurking near garbage bins. The creature moved off when the witness's dog started to bark. Okay, I got cut off there when I got done recording. Let me make sure here. When I got done recording, I just realized that I got cut off. So we're gonna finish up with what I was doing, and then we're going to, I'll just edit the things together and then we'll be good. So I got cut off on Farrell Winter 1970. Let's go. Farrell Winter 1970. Witness Terry Gaines observed a brown-haired Sasquatch lurking near garbage bins. The creature moved off when the witness's dog started to bark. Mr. Gaines claimed that the creature had a bad limp and was heavily favoring its right leg. So there we're talking about an injured Sasquatch. I know that when my video just got cut off, and I realized it as I ended it, when I heard the story of him right here, this Sasquatch here going through the trash cans, I went in a little bit here about how the story that I got from on the Navajo Reservation Casino. I'll go a little bit more in depth. I'll make it a little shorter here. The story was that in the middle of the night, when that pungent smell hits the air, and these people working for this casino are out having a smoke break, or they're just outside throwing the trash and doing whatever, they get that smell, they all head inside, and then they later find out that these beings are coming in and going through the trash, and because there's a restaurant inside there, and they're taking out food, and they're looking for certain things like the big tomahawk bones from the steaks and everything. I went a little bit more in depth, and when I kept talking, I didn't realize the video had got cut off, but I don't have a lot of time now. But I just want to finish some of these stories that I had done, so I can at least have a full episode here and not get cut off at 29 minutes or whatever it was. So let's keep going. 6 kilometers outside Whitehorse on the east side of the Yukon River, August 1978. It was 8 a.m. and the witness had gone to his favorite fishing spot near a small utility shed. He had just started to set up his spot when he looked 200 yards downriver and observed a Bigfoot on 2 feet standing near a grove of trees. The creature was somewhat hunchbacked, black in color, and thin, and was observed grabbing a branch on the tree. As the creature tried to hold on to the branch, it broke and the creature fell onto his butt on the ground. The witness got very scared and left the area immediately. He stated that he was only 15 minutes from civilization. The witness is now 42, and the memory is etched in his brain. Now, real quick, let me just make sure here. Okay, that is what I said to when I was reading this last time, is the memory etched in your brain. You have something like this happen to you. Doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago, doesn't matter if it was 5 or 6 months ago or a week ago. You have an encounter like this, something out of the ordinary, it is going to be etched in your brain for the rest of your life. No matter how many podcasts I've heard or stories I've come across, if people have one, like myself, my story from the Bistai Badlands, you have one strange story out of your entire life, 1 or 2 odd encounters out of hunting or hiking or doing any of this stuff, it'll be etched in your brain for the rest of your life. You will never forget it, because it is something so odd and different than your everyday experience. You can't help but have it burned into your memory banks, okay? A couple more things here and then we're out, okay? Yukon Territory, September 29, 2004, 21 years ago. Something a little closer to home than what we've been reading over the past couple hundred years, or even as far back as 1,000 years ago from Leif Erikson's diary, right? Here we go. The witness has lived in Alaska and has seen grizzly bear and other large mammals many times. He stopped his vehicle around noon to relieve himself. He walked a slight distance into the woods and smelled an odd odor to something dead. He turned and saw a creature standing saw a creature standing on 2 feet looking at him from 50 feet away. The creature was bigger than the witness and slowly started to walk towards him, swinging its arms as it made its way toward the witness. The witness ran to his car and left the area immediately. He felt he had just seen a Bigfoot. The GCBRO blacked out the exact location of the sighting. And that's another reason why, you know, if I say there's a casino on the Navajo Reservation, I won't give the exact name of it. I don't want to give too much of that kind of stuff away. If I ever do hear that there is a sighting or a Bigfoot family or something, I don't want to ever give the exact location, because I wouldn't want one of these things to be harmed or hurt, or someone to try and go out and hurt it. If you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles or How to Hunt with Steve on YouTube, or Small Town Monsters, you know you will come across stories of these beings being hurt by certain agencies or people that have shot and killed them, and you know, I guess if under certain circumstances, if it comes down to them or you and your life's in danger, I understand that. But just going out to harm one, just to do it, or to bag one for research, you know, by some kind of governmental agency, I mean, that's just shitty and such a bummer, you know. But it is what it is, and that's out of our hands. Next thing, South McAllen River, August 1984, daylight hours. So here's a daylight sighting. The witness is a professional tracker and is considered an expert in wildlife track identification. She found several human-like footprints in the mud near the river. The tracks measured 16 inches long, 5 inches wide, and they were pressed 2 inches into the soil. The stride was 4 to 5 feet, and 5 footprints in total were found. So you got tracks that measure 16 inches long, 5 inches wide, with a stride that is 4 to 5 feet in length. That's a massive creature, 100%. Okay. We're going to end it with this story, which is what I just did about 10 minutes ago, but I didn't realize that the camera had turned off. So this is just wrapping up what I had just done. Let's go ahead and finish strong here. Alaskan Highway, June 2004. Another story from 21 years ago. White Horse Star newspaper article by Chuck Tobin. 2 Yukoners think they saw something like a Sasquatch. Whatever 2 Teslin residents saw in the early morning mist, Conservation Officer Dave Bacchia knows that it shook them up. Marion Sheldon and Gus Jules were traveling out of town along the Alaska Highway on an all-terrain vehicle. Sometime after 1 a.m. last Sunday, when they passed what resembled a person standing on the side of the highway, thinking it was a local from their small community who might be in need of a ride, they turned around and headed back. Bacchia explained in an interview Tuesday, recalling his conversation with the pair. As the 2 lifelong Teslin residents and members of the Teslin Tlingit Council approached to within 20 feet, they noticed the figure was covered in hair, standing upright the entire time. Though the northern natural light was dusky at the time of the morning, Jules told Bacchia he saw what he believed to be flesh tones hidden beneath a mat of hair. I have no doubt they saw something and are convinced that it was not a bear or anything in the ordinary. The conservation officer said they are convinced it was something out of the ordinary, and they were pretty shook up over it. Bacchia said Jules is an experienced hunter. He described the figure as standing about 7 feet tall but hunched over. They could see it was not a person. I have no doubt in my mind what they believe they saw was a Sasquatch, Bacchia said. Whether it was or not, I do not know. Just because you can't prove something was there does not mean it was not there. So, real quick. Okay, good. This didn't shut off on me. So, there was a few things I had shared, not realizing that my video had been cut off. And I don't know exactly where it got cut off. If my story made it, talking about the UNM story and all that stuff. So I'll review it, and if not, I'll go ahead and share it again some other time. But I gotta get home to the wife and kids now. But I will put these 2 videos together as one, and it will make episode 13. Thanks everybody for hanging with me. The last video was completely on fire for my page. Over 500 views in a matter of days. It kind of leveled out at that, but that's cool. Let's see if we can catch fire again with this. This is the Tree Peakers podcast. This is episode 13, and we are going to keep on rolling. So more interviews to come. More stories like this. I'm going to get the book Quantum Bigfoot. We're going to go down the rabbit hole on the paranormal side of this subject, and a lot more to look forward to. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm Eddie. This is the Tree Peakers podcast. We'll see you soon.